7 o'clock. I call the meeting of the Library Board of Trustees to order as duly noted. This meeting is being held on Monday, January 10th, 2022 via Zoom. And at the end of the meeting, if we have any members of the public who wish to speak, comment, or ask questions, we will have afford them the opportunity. So Lizzie, if you let me know if there's anybody seeking to do that. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of our December 13th, 2021 meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes, I only know this. Sorry, I only know one little detail. I don't know if it matters. At the very end, it said the next meeting was January 10th, 2021.
Well, we can amend that. We'll make that slight revision.
Okay.
It always happens. Everybody writes that on their checks until February, right?
Yep.
Are there any other additions, amendments, revisions, deletions? Seeing none, the chair will accept a motion to approve the minutes of the December 13th, 2021 meeting. Motion made by Trustee Macy Phelps. Is there a second?
Aye.
Second by Trustee Ryan. I will call the roll on that. Trustee Ryan?
Aye.
Trustee Cole?
Aye.
Trustee Persons?
Aye.
Trustee Van Au?
Aye.
Trustee Macy Phelps?
Aye.
And the chair also votes in affirmative. The minutes are unanimously approved. The next item on the agenda is the director's report. For any members of the public who are participating, we accept the report as submitted, but we always afford Lizzie the opportunity to highlight some things or add anything to that report. So Lizzie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. It was a busy month in December, but I just wanted to highlight that we had two really popular programs. We had a trivia and a holiday movie trivia that had over 40 participants. It was a couple of days before the Christmas holiday, so there are a lot of families in town, and we were able to do that over Zoom. And then we had two back-to-back in-person programs for the week after that was learning to play ukulele. So we had a teen and adult program in the morning and then a children's one in the afternoon. And they were both really, really well regarded. People came back. They were so excited to either they got ukuleles, she had them there. And it was nice to have in-person programming before things started to kind of pill back after the holidays. But it was so popular, we're going to actually use the instructor to do drop-in Zoom ukulele. So people who went to can now Zoom with her in the next couple months of the winter. So those were some really great ones. And this month we have a local author coming at the end of this month, Jan Brogan. So she will be, I think she lives in Dedham now. So she did true crime books, if I'm not mistaken. And then Lynn Vitti is actually going to facilitate a writing workshop bi-weekly. And so that was going to be in person, but that was moved to Zoom at least the first month or so. So those are some things we're looking forward to.
Hey, anybody have any questions or comments on the director's report? Seeing none, we'll move on. The next item on the agenda is our monthly COVID-19 update. Lizzie?
I was hoping we could take it off the agenda as we were September, October, but unfortunately I have more of an update than I would like. So as you are all aware, the Omicron variant has pushed the towns, well, every town's testing positivity rate very high. So right before Christmas, I think we were at, when we required masks, it was like 4.2, 4.3% in Westwood. And then last week's numbers, I don't have an update, but we were anywhere around 16%. So it had skyrocketed. And it's all the surrounding towns before too. So we're keeping track because the library is a unique facility than other municipal buildings because we do have, it's not just residents, we have community members of other communities. So it's something to watch for as well. But yeah, so the numbers are very high and we have had a lot of staff, unfortunately, either be close contact with someone in their household or eventually come down with it. So it was a rotation where I would have two out and then maybe they would come back and then two others would go out. So we got through it for the last few weeks, but according to the Board of Health, we are still, the last 2 weeks and the next 2 weeks are still part of the spike. So their indication was just to, carry on as much as possible, wearing masks. We're still trying to be somewhat isolated at work and not, together as much. But I just brought up to be aware that, some of the talk from the town was if it happened where we had a lot of staff come down with it at once or had to be out, or if it was so bad that the Board of Health wants staffing to be reduced in some way, it may impact schedules or timing. Nothing like a closure, but maybe closing early a few days if we didn't have people to work the night. Or we definitely we opened curbside up for 6 days a week again, and encouraging people to opt into that so they don't have to go in places if they don't want to for comfort level. But some good news is that it will burn bright but extinguish fast, hopefully, is what it's looking like. So some of the things we've done is story times, because it's our youngest population and they're unvaccinated. We had moved for January to Zoom for the story times. Some of our in-person programs were, people are opting into them. They're wearing masks. And if it's 5 or 6, we still have Mahjong planned. We still have a couple of book clubs planned. So we're being safe, and people are allowed to, we have a virtual option for that, but we're trying to be mindful of not just stopping everything and just being thoughtful about what we're doing, and in the communities buy-in too. If they're like, I don't feel comfortable going in, then we can reassess. So that's one of the reasons why we switched the writing one to virtual, just as we get, if we can do it virtually, might as well. So those are some of the things that have impacted services and programming, but we're hoping that it's only through the next month or so. So it's like one step back so we can then go 2 steps forward faster. Right.
Well, as it's been the trustees' policy since the pandemic began to follow strictly any of the town's guidance or policies. We'll continue to do that, but I also appreciate you and your staff's ability to be flexible and still try to deliver services, even if we have to take a step back in terms of the number of people in the building. But we just, my sense is still from the trustees that we want to follow as closely as possible the guidance, keep the staff and the patrons as safe as possible. So just keep us updated, Lizzie, and if we have to move back to curbside, we'll do whatever we can to deliver the best level of services we can with all things considered.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions or comments on the COVID-19? Trustee Macy Phelps?
Just to say that everything that you described, Lizzie, sounds completely prudent for what's going on. And obviously it sounds like you're keeping in touch with the town, and we're within the guidelines of the town. And I think this is a natural step along the road of what the new normal is going to be like. We have to be able to deal with these things when they happen. And it sounds like you're everything that you've said sounds prudent and reasonable.
Yeah,
and again, will you convey to the staff how much the trustees appreciate the professionalism and their commitment, and the way that despite everything, they still try to deliver the best services possible. But we are mindful that their safety and the safety of their families is something that we take very seriously.
I will. Thank you, Paul.
The next item on the agenda is staffing update. And I know you've been busy interviewing, because I've called you a few times.
Oh yeah, I've been in interviews. Yes. Oh, in the year of interviews. So we have 2 new staff members joining our team. Well, one is not as new, but newer to the position. So Kristen Barenthaler works. She started as a volunteer at the library, working with tech help in the reference department. Was beloved by many seniors as she's very patient, and fell in love with working in a library, and actually spent the last few years going to get her degree. And then during that time had became a seasonal employee of the library, so would pick up shifts as needed. She graduated in August and is excited to get working in a library, and actually applied for the 20-hour library assistant position. So we are delighted to have her on board regularly, so she says, to learn and grow at the place that kind of sparked that interest. So we're excited about Kristen. And then Annabelle Ho is our new branch library assistant. And she has started her work in libraries, actually working part-time in Wellesley and picking up some hours in Dedham. And so we also just had a really great interview with her. She knits, she's excited she loves children's books. She's very well-rounded, and will work really well with Claire. And of course, she will have her first day was today at the main, because she will have a shift at the main library too. So it was the first week today. Today is the first week for them. The other part is I was so excited to finish interviewing. We did have a resignation, which has opened up some switching of positions. So we do have another 20-hour position that we have posted. So we will have to interview for that as well. And after that, I think that we won't have to interview anymore. That's my fingers crossed. So there'll be more updates probably at the next meeting with, there were some people we had interviewed for the other ones that we did enjoy that we'd like to probably bring back. So it's not starting totally from scratch. So we had a lot of good candidates this time. So that was a relief. So yeah, I think
Please
that's
extend our welcome to the 2 new part-time
Sure.
members. And hopefully sometime we can have them join us at a meeting and get to know them a little better. Any questions or comments on the staffing update? No, hearing none. The next item in the agenda is the Wentworth Hall Islington Branch Library update.
It's a good update. First of all, I just found out Jimmy McCarthy texted me on Friday that they put the sign up out front. So I don't know if you've seen it yet, but we had to get a new sign, but it's in the same image and likeness as the old one. The old one, unfortunately, the wood had split open, but it looks like in the same style of what the familiar sign. So that also feels like another step closer. But more importantly is December 27th, we received the shelving, hallelujah. And so they spent that week installing it, putting everything in place. And then at the end of last week and this week, we're really opening up all the boxes of books and finishing setting up the computers. Mary Beth, we did do a little walkthrough. You saw some of the books out. Nothing is totally in place yet. So with the some of the staffing being irregular based on certain people being out, it's been harder to have all full staffing to get everything going. We're doing the best that we can, but that may impact making sure that everything is put in place, with a perfect bow on it. And then of course, staffing it. So we have everyone back now, but I'm just trying to be thoughtful of everyone's expectations based on making sure we have people to staff the building as well, because trying to staff both buildings may be difficult if different people are out. So, so we have the books out. We're in the process now putting them on the shelves. And the other thing I added to my report was that Claire and myself, Wellesley Library just did a renovation, and their children's department had this gorgeous, like huge mural of these origami animals. And we just fell in love with it. We watched this video where the artist talked about it, and Claire reached out to him and he actually met at the branch and just saw, we have a tiny space, but we would love the children's books in this spot. And because it's one room, we would like something that would identify this as, this is where you go to be with your children. And so he came up with some ideas, and the Friends of the Library, we brought it to them, and they decided they would love to sponsor that. So right now we're still in the draft. He's going to do a design. So we talked about, something like that would match. So the main library, we have the glass walls coming into children's that are all flowers. So we were thinking, if it was something like even butterflies that actually are books or something like that could be placed on either side of the windows. So not as large scale as Wellesley, but something that might be very unique and charming to the branch, as well as be cohesive with the main library's children's department. So that's still in design phase, but that's something that we kind of just sprung up, and he had the opportunity to come, and so we didn't want to miss out that opportunity for that. So that's the Wentworth Hall update. I don't really have a set date for opening because it does depend on staffing and getting everything out and ready to go.
Okay. Yeah, Trustee Ryan, did you have a question?
I was wondering if the artist gave you an indication of how long it would take to do that mural.
Oh, he said once we get in there, it would take him a couple days, not very long at all. So he had another big project in February. So he was trying to squeeze us in because it's a smaller project, hopefully in next week, the end of January. So that would be great.
Yeah, that's great.
So up to this point, it's been our policy as far as Wentworth to wait until it's fully functional to open it so that the patrons can have the best and most optimal experience. I guess I'm looking for a sense from the trustees. Is that still the policy we want to pursue? Anybody want to speak to that?
I think that would seem to me the best way to go, particularly with the situation that Lizzie is dealing with staff. We need to have at least 2 people there all the time. So if they're struggling to have everyone on board, that seems to make sense too.
Is that still the sense of my colleagues? Trustee Macy Phelps, did you want to say something?
I think so, Paul. I think I'm looking to Lizzie's comfort level.
Right.
You know, when do we think we're ready? I guess, you know, if there are little bits, if there are little incremental bits that maybe aren't quite in place, I think that's okay. But fundamentally, we want a good experience for patrons.
Right.
You know, there's always going to be a punch list, right?
Oh yeah, with the main library, I think we were open for definitely a few
we were
months.
open for a month. Yeah. Yeah, a few, more than a few months. But yeah, so I had another question, but yeah, on the topic of opening, go ahead.
Trustee Persons, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I also think that hopefully that'll give us enough time to kind of get through the surge. And I mean, I don't know what the capacity is of the branch, but you know, it's not that large of a space. So, you know, we have to deal with, you know, how many people would want to be in there and, you know, to make everyone feel safe and that kind of thing. Because I mean, I don't know that you're going to be doing curbside from there.
Right.
You know, so that would probably be better to wait. I had a lovely visit the day I went, and the overwhelming thing that I don't know why I was so surprised when I got in there, but was that it reminded me in the way it was set up of the old branch. It's orientation, like the orientation was so similar, except it was just on the opposite side of the street. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I don't know why, but I was so shocked by that. But it's just so nice. It's, you know, brand new space and brand new everything. And I think Lizzie had a lot of great ideas that she shared with me when we were there walking around the space. One of them especially I thought was a great idea, that she talked about maybe getting some folks to maybe offer tours of the building, because people come in and they're like, oh, you know, they don't know where to go, what to do, that kind of, because Youth and Family Services is there, we're there, there's a downstairs, is, you know, so maybe some volunteers, that kind of thing. But Lizzie, I was wondering if maybe you would be able to describe to the trustees what you were explaining to me about the lower level. And,
about its use or about?
Well, yeah, about the lack of the wall, the lack of the divider.
Right.
I think that is something that we should all be aware of.
So the lower level is, there's, when you go down the stairs, there's a large, almost like, I mean, it's not gymnasium big, but it's a large rectangle. And then there to your right in the middle of the room there's maybe there's 4 round tables, and it's kind of a flexible space. Part of the process is that they're going to get a dividing wall. That is still, like, supply chain issues. That's not happening as soon as we had liked. So, but originally that will divide the space. So you would have a large room that you could have, let's say early childhood could have a program. And then the other space where there are these round tables, that's where, you know, knitting could happen, or there could be, you know, a meeting happening with a different department. So you'd be able to book these rooms simultaneously, but without that dividing wall, it's just one big space. And even with the dividing wall there, you know, we have to be thoughtful about, because the bathrooms for the downstairs are in the kind of middle space, if that makes sense. If you were in the big room and there was a dividing wall, you're still going to have to go through potentially another meeting while that is happening to use the bathroom. So there's still some conversations because it's both Youth and Family Services that will use the space. Rec is using it, the library is using it. And then it will be available for community members to use. So I know there were groups that used the ICC before, so they'll be using it and potentially more. So with all of that need for the space, it's very flexible, but right now it's basically one space. So you can only have it one at a time. And it's definitely going to be that for the next, I would say 6 months or so, if I'm being honest. So for the library, we were kind of, because the ICC, when they built for this community space, everything that was over there gets priority. And so that is rec programs and Youth and Family Service. The library did everything in the library. So we're kind of like, oh, we would like to use this space, but we're kind of not, on lower in the list, but we're kind of being plugged in. So we do have it on Monday mornings, but we have to have the whole basement now. So for Monday mornings, we do have it for a Storytime Children's program. And if Claire, it's like a staff room, but it is a conference size room that we could use for knitting or something like that. But yeah, it's you can't really have right now 3 programs going at the same time in this space until there's either a permanent wall or a dividing wall or something that will really make it into separate rooms. Is that your sense too, Mary Beth?
Yeah, that's what you and I discussed. And when you're in there, you really realize it, because there's like a big echo in the room. It's a big empty room, that there isn't going to be a lot of stuff in there to absorb sound.
Yes.
So the only comment that I have on that is, being part of the Islington Task Force for all that time, the conversations were very different about that space. And I just feel, I mean, in all of our conversations, the library, that was equally library space as well as whoever else's space it was going to be. And we talked all about the use for that space and the potential use for that space and everything else. So it was just, and apparently, I guess we couldn't get the wall because it was too expensive in the design process or in the build process. So now to obviously not have the wall and have to wait for the wall and then to be on the kind of the, not in the club for the wall, it's kind of it's just different from what I had expected from a while back. So I was a little bit disappointed in that.
We are lucky that we work so well with the Rec and Youth Family Services. We created a calendar that we're in communication is key. And so I'm really happy that the people we're working with in terms of, oh, do you need it this night? Or, I had a book, but I don't have a program. So I am happy that from our conversations and our meetings, we have been meeting quarterly even now so that we can, all get together in the same room and, what are your programs the next quarter? And are you doing anything, February vacations? So that has been a really positive outcome, is being able to work closely. Because I think at first we never had to do that really. So it's more opportunities have developed from that in terms of, we've always worked with early childhood, but now, oh, Danielle, you're doing this program. Oh, well, that will really be great for the library because of this. So that was one silver lining.
That's good.
Trustee Cole?
Yeah, so I guess I have a question. What is the flooring on the lower level? Is it just cement? Is it tile? Is it rug? You made it sound like it's loud. I'm just worried that even once you get that dividing wall, will everything echo and be really obnoxious?
Yeah, it's laminate, right? I think it is. I think it's laminate.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
I was imagining like a 12-year-old birthday party down there when you're trying, like.
So it was loud. I mean, and it was just you and Lizzie, and you thought it was like loud and echoey.
Well, it's a big space, so you can
Right.
imagine a bunch of boys running around like crazy in there, like they used to in the ICC space.
Right.
So,
Like, will the Boy Scout troop be back there? Troop 1, because now I think they're meeting at the first. They're coming
Yeah,
back.
right.
Is that what you're saying?
I
Lizzie?
think that, I think that they were one of the groups that were on the list of that they were.
I mean, their
grandfathered.
evening, they probably shouldn't affect
Yeah.
you too much. The other question I had is, who do we follow up with the dividing wall? Is that a Jim McCarthy thing that we just keep nudging him about? Or is that a
Nora and Jim have, and
Right.
I
I just think if we're squeaky, it'll happen. I'm sure they won't forget about us, but we'll make sure that
we're
we
definitely squeaky.
talk about it.
I think, right. I think we should obviously, Trustee Van Al, then I'll speak. Go ahead, Trustee Van
Sorry.
Al.
The dividing wall, is it going to be permanent or movable?
I think what was in the plans is movable, and but I think from some of the meetings of the departments, we would be fine with there just being 2 separate rooms. I mean, if that's if we could just build a wall and that's faster, cheaper, we don't have to wait for. The thing is, because originally what they had, I think, quoted for coming down the stairs, if you've ever seen the Friends episode with like Pivot, they couldn't get that. So they had to get a different kind to actually be, now that when it wasn't built into it, now having to put one in and bring it down the stairs, they're limited to which kind, or this is beyond my understanding, but.
So it sounds like it might be better to build it. Yeah. Well,
But
And
they
I think
probably
that-
wanted the one big space when they want to fit 150 chairs down there. So that's, I think, what the dividing wall came into
I think,
Yeah.
play.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think the dividing wall came into like the Islington Task Force meetings, something that
Yes.
could encompass all of those people. I don't know, I don't know where I don't think town meeting would ever be held there or anything like
Oh.
that. So I'm not sure. But I think that was the intention, was for larger meetings like that. But then someone else was like, where would anybody park for a meeting, for a meeting that large? But,
It's true.
sure.
Good point.
My sense is that we should make sure we stay on top of the dividing wall and get it in as soon as we can. I understand supply chain issues as well as anybody else. I also think that we should continue to monitor the situation in terms of if there's noise abatement things that we can do. We can obviously talk to the other parts of the town. They're going to be using the facility. It's a shared space, so it's something that if it's we're having issues with on noise, we should talk to the other parts of the town, and if there's abatement things that we can do, we should pursue it.
Okay.
But I'm glad to hear that you're working cooperatively to try to manage the space as best we can.
Yeah.
Trustee Macy Phelps, did you have a question you wanted to ask? You said earlier.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something, Lizzie. The idea of painting the mural in the children's area is great. And it occurred to me, I think one of the pictures in your report, correct me if I'm wrong, was of the business center
Yes.
with the small tables and chairs. I wonder whether that might be a space for some sort of something on the walls, brighten it up, something inspirational. Maybe that's something that where, I know we haven't had the 21st century report yet, but maybe that's something where, since the 21st century funded the technology, there might be a role there potentially with a sponsor, that sort of thing. So just something that, to be keeping in mind for that.
That's a great idea.
Okay, well, there's the 7 people on this meeting right now are the most anxious to have this facility open and be the best that it can be. And so we remain committed to that.
Yeah, and that can be added later. That doesn't,
Yeah.
I wouldn't
And
say hold
but
both of that.
just in general, for people who are, anxious, looking forward to when it opens and we open it to the best we can, there's nobody more desirous of that than the people that are engaged in the conversation right now. Trustee Ryan, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, it can come in time, but I was thinking that perhaps we could get maybe a rug to set the children's section aside, something like that would absorb sound, but also, just a thought.
Yeah, that's true. And for the downstairs space, I know Early Childhood had bought already 2 different colored rugs, because it is a large space for when they're doing the reading part, just to absorb some of the sound. And again, partnering with them, Janet's like, if you're doing story time, roll those rugs out and use them. But I agree, as well as for the children's area. That's great, Maria. Thank you.
Okay. Just keep us informed on a real-time basis as we try to look for maybe early February, hopefully when the staffing is back up, but we remain committed to that. Any further questions or comments on the Islington branch? No, hearing none. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the strategic plan update. So I invite our subcommittee, Trustee Macy Phelps, Trustee Van Al, and Lizzie to speak to us about the strategic plan.
I'll jump in here because we definitely, with the holiday break, we're kind of had a break between phase 1 and phase 2. So there's not as much. A lot of work has been done, but it's more on CC's part of behind the scenes. So the last week, we'll have more to report next month. But for now, as a quick update, we have part of our process is to identify strategic questions that relate particularly to Westwood. And, part of that came from, interviews with department heads, interviews with the trustees, other subject matter experts. And so we drafted down 10 different research categories, because we have dozens of questions, but they can kind of fit under each 10 different categories. So right now, tomorrow's meeting with staff, with department heads, will be to start putting those questions under different different research ads. So which ones would be answered by a survey? Which ones would be answered by a focus group? Which ones will be, how do we reach, non-users? Do we do, literally a resident mailing to, if you've never set foot in the library, you open your mail, tell us why. So we're starting to get into the research phase, long story short. And so I was excited to see all of the conversations that I've had with the steering committee, with Mary, with Maureen, with you all. And then to see them, like, that's a great question. And what's great about this process that we're doing is that it's very particular to Westwood, to the community, and to things happening in the world, and how Westwood responds to it. So I think that the type of input we're going to get from the community will be very particular to how we're going to shape our future. So, and it's cool to now see it. We've talked about that in the fall, and to see it now have results of, oh, this is what's happening. So we're going to start with research activities this month. So next month we'll have more update on what survey we're doing when we're sending out, and we have to narrow down some of the steering committee will help us narrow down the key strategic questions, because there are a lot of them. Too many to possibly answer, but it was the fun part to be able to just throw all these questions out there. So that will be the next phase.
Thank you. Trustee Macy Phelps, Trustee Van Al, anything you would want to add at this point?
I don't think so. Lizzie summarized it well. I know Connie mentioned that she did very much appreciate the time that the trustees spent on having the conversations with her, and felt that there was a lot of good input from that. Maureen?
Oh, I agree. I think Lizzie has, capsulized it, and it'll be interesting to see what we get for some of the answers to all these questions. So,
okay. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues on the strategic plan update? Okay, hearing none. The next item on the agenda relates to the strategic plan. As part of the strategic plan, as Lizzie said, we're going to be looking at library operations, policies, practices, goals, mission. And so we'll be looking at various policies that we have. And one of the policies that we'll be looking at and to revise or maintain or enhance is the collection development policy. And so we wanted to start that process at this meeting. Lizzie had provided that policy to us. I don't expect we're just going to say this is the policy at this meeting, but I did want to put it on the agenda so that we can begin a discussion, and in coming months, if there's other policies that are pertinent to the strategic plan, we'll loop those into our discussions. So Lizzie, I don't know if you wanted to say anything, or my colleagues want to say anything at this point.
Yeah, I'll just briefly, the background is the last meeting, I think we didn't discuss it, but I attached the 1997 collection development policy or material selection policy that I had on file, and I just sent that out, had a no draft edit to it. And then the past month, I just started to update it in the most basic way in terms of verbiage and, things that are outdated in terms of certain materials, or just to encompass. And then, I've been reading MLS, Massachusetts Library System has a great lib guide for policies and some example collection development policies that I was looking into, certain language that I really liked. So the one that I attached for this month's materials for the meeting was just my first stab at it. So that, as Paul was saying, this isn't a signed seal of approval. I wasn't sure if we were going to move forward with, I don't know, a policy subcommittee or what, but I wanted for you guys to see, it has the same criteria. I just shaped it so it matched a little bit of, as I think I pointed out, ALAs, these are the sections that each collection development policy should have. I did add a few things that I noticed over the years that we hadn't had written into it, were something for local authors, something for local history, self-published author titles, and library of things. Those are things that I knew what the procedure was, but we hadn't had it incorporated into one. So those are certain additions that I had. And then I think I just fleshed out a little bit on the procedure for the materials reconsideration. I think the old policy just said, a patron could speak to the director, and then if they move forward, it went to the Board of Trustees. And I kept with that procedure, but just, first, in my experience, when I was a department head, sometimes if someone was upset by a title or, didn't think it should be in the children's department. That's a common one. And sometimes they just wanted to tell somebody, that their thoughts. And then if I offered the form, it was, well, no, but it wanted to speak to somebody. So that's why I thought it was reasonable to have someone speak to the department head who could probably be the first knowledgeable one to explain why that title was there as they're the main purchaser. And then if not satisfied, a discussion with the director. And then if they want to pursue it up the line, to bring it to the board. So those are some of the things to note. I didn't know if we had questions. I know. Mary, did we? Yeah.
Trustee Macy Phelps, did you want to speak?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Paul. No, Lizzie, having read it, I think I thought it's certainly a good draft. One of my questions was around how it's been working how the current practice has been working day to day, year to year. In my tenure on the board, I don't recall receive the trustees being approached with an actual submission form. So could you give a sense of, like, maybe on a yearly basis, about how many people say something, and, have you ever seen a form submitted? What's the history there?
Sure. So when in my tenure at the library, I have never had one officially, even as department head, submitted. There was a file that I inherited from Loretta Easy, who was the department head before me in children's, that had one of the titles was "It's Perfectly Normal." And in her, so Tom Beatty was the director, and that was a children's, basically sexual education book that was in the children's department, that was properly challenged, and the form was filled out. It was brought in through the process to the board of trustees. And then ultimately, after reviewed, it stayed in the children's department. And there is a written explanation of why that was decided. So I've seen those folders. And then in conversation, I think with Tom, the last year, he was saying that there was another title that I don't know if it was actually a written form or it started that way. And it was a conversation with him that was able to come to a consensus, but it was either a challenge or somebody was upset by something in a book that was one of the One Town, One Books. And I may be getting this wrong, but it was able to be resolved in a conversation of like, oh, okay, I see your point of view. I hear you, that type of a thing. But for data purposes, I would say maybe one or two comments a year of somebody who might, most of the time it's somebody returning something to CERC and saying, oh, I didn't like this, and as I said, it's mostly children's. That's a very hot button area of this shouldn't be in the children's department, or I didn't like this. And, one was a story about a dog that was of like a German Shepherd that was a soldier's dog. And the children's book was a chapter book. And the whole book was about him, being here and working through like PTSD with this soldier. And that's the whole description on the jacket cover. And someone returned that and was like, oh, I don't think this is appropriate. It's too much of a hard topic to be in the children's department. And when a staff member said, would you like a formal complaint? Oh, no. They, but they want to say that. And, the staff member gave it to me. And, I remember like, oh, they left. I couldn't talk to them about it. But that's an example I remember where it's a lot of times it's somebody returning something and saying that. But as for a actual, when we offer it, a lot of people don't want to go through with that. So in my time, I don't think so. In terms of people saying something verbally want to be heard, it's maybe a few times a year. But I've not ever had somebody, fill out the form and go through that process to respond to them.
Thank you.
So trustee Persons.
I also thought this draft was an excellent draft. I mean, I could just tell by a couple of little typos that maybe this was in draft form, but I also thought it might be in real form too, but there were a couple just of minor things. But what I liked about it was that it says, or it keeps going back to the fact that the parents, are responsible, a caregiver or whomever it is responsible for making that determination of ultimately for the, especially for the child. And I remember having a conversation, this was a long time ago, but this was early on when I was on the board. And because I remember it was about adult material in the library. And it was a question about that and about adult access to adult material and about how it is that we do not filter that. And we kind of had a long discussion as to why, and I think someone may have brought that up to Tom. But I think it was at the time because computers were becoming much more available. And that was that was, obviously pertinent to people
Right.
because they were worried about people being able to get on. And so anyway, but when I read that within the policy, when I read that section, that brought it back to me. So anyway, I think this is, I'm not sure that I would be able to add a whole lot to this. It's a great policy, it seems. The only other thought I had was maybe we could update the actual form itself. That form looks like it's from 1965.
Well, Mary Beth, I was going in circles. Like, I don't know why I can't find this document because I had it in like the policy manual, and I was embarrassed that I scanned it in. And then today in Tom's files, I found it typed properly, same information. So I do have a document. I should have looked at Tom's files.
Hallelujah.
And he was so organized. So
hallelujah.
Trustee Van Al, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to add, I was going to say what Mary Beth had to say about, the parent responsibility in terms of children's book selections or material selections. I thought a lot of the language that you've used to update the policy, modernize the policy was very good. And of course, around, what's available. So different kinds of things in the collection. That explanation was good. And also when you get into what's at the main library and the Islington branch, I think that's a great clarification for the public too.
Yeah.
So I know it's a draft, but I think it's a really good draft to begin with. So more to come. And
Thank you. Yeah.
also having that form that they have to request it from somebody is well stated. So, that's a good thing. Not necessarily a change, but good that we keep it that way.
Yeah, I also like the scope of the draft, and I mean, it's something that it's 20, almost 25-year-old policy, like 1997. And I just think it's worthy of us spending some time tweaking the draft. And I guess my question to you, Lizzie, and Maureen and Mary, is how does this relate to the strategic plan? Is this something we should go forward with separate and apart from the strategic plan, or?
Well, as I was drafting it, when I was starting to look at other people's plans, I think the area, and I was thinking, I want to make sure that we, get a draft going. And then I was like, this is something that could come out. I think where it would come into our, if we redefined our mission and our core values. So not redefined, but if that we shape that as part of our strategic plan, like Westwood Library stands for X, Y, and Z, that would be incorporated into this. I think what I tried to do was take what we do stand for already, which it's not going to inherently change drastically. And then, but as I was editing that, I was thinking, if we had it, we could say as per our strategic plan, the library's focusing on this, this, and this. And because of that, these are areas of focus or something like that. But I tried to keep it vague enough here that it could work if the board felt that they wanted to update and institute it. And there's nothing to say that, in 6 months we couldn't add it and reapprove it and update it as well. But yeah, when I found that one that was 1997, I was like, we should at least get this going. But so I don't know how Mary and Maureen, how you feel it would play into it as well.
I would agree with your thinking and some of what we talked about in our subcommittee, in terms of also giving the staff something to go to and look at when they have to respond to those kinds of questions, I think is important. Something I'd want if I were in that position to, kind of helps out with the language, not that they wouldn't have it, but, what are we as the library saying about certain things? I think that's, makes it the job easier, makes that experience, that situation, and the whole, referring to freedom to read, that kind of thing is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, I don't,
Phelps?
yeah, thanks, Paul. I don't know, just second what they just said. And, I don't think we need to, if we got to the point where we're all happy with the policy and wanted to approve it, I don't think there's any need to hold off
Okay.
for the full plan in order to approve it. I think I like the idea that policies are living, breathing things. Doing the plan this year was a good catalyst, a good incentive to kind of open up the policy book and say, what is it? And in this case, it seemed like might make sense to get started sooner rather than later on this.
So I'll ask my colleagues what you think the next step should be. Should we work with it some more and put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
Can I just ask one question?
Sure. Certainly.
It does appear that school libraries are being challenged a lot more than public libraries are. It seems like with respect to their collections. I was just wondering, Lizzie, have you either heard or seen anything that could help you in that process by either looking at their policy? I don't know if that would be at all helpful or not, but it's probably somewhat different, obviously, within a school library, but just wondering if that would be helpful.
Yeah, it's I have been trying to keep kind of my ear to the ground on what's happening and how school libraries are responding. And, in a simple way, I was thinking, okay, the school board is, their trustees board. And so things go to the school board, but the difference, well, one of the major differences, as we were saying about like children's materials, is that they are, in place of the parents. So I think that's where the tension goes is, the school libraries and the teachers are, that's where where we don't have that responsibility at, in the public library. And that kind of, not that people wouldn't try to challenge what's in the public library, but I think people recognize a little bit more in 2021, at least in Massachusetts, that, oh yeah, okay, it's a public building, it is for everybody. Whereas, things focus on the school, see much more, I should be able to shape what my child's reading in school. But it's definitely something that I can look into, but I think that's where some of that, where I'm like, oh, that doesn't apply to our mission. Their mission's slightly different than the public libraries in that way.
Trustee Macy Phelps, and then I'll trustee Cole. Yes, Trustee Macy Phelps.
Yeah, sorry, just, one other thing that occurred to me in thinking about it, I think Lizzie, I don't know if someone mentioned, well, do we need a policy subcommittee or whatever? I think one thing that I would find helpful, and maybe this is part where the, going along with the planning process comes into play, is maybe it would be helpful to get input, say, from the department heads on, how does this look workable? Where do they see, how do they see this being implemented? Are there gaps, that maybe we as trustees wouldn't notice, but they know just from the day-to-day because they're the subject matter experts. So I guess I would think, we as trustees need to make the final judgment. But when you said it's it's kind of your first attempt at making that update, I think some things that might help would be some of that department head subject matter expertise, and perhaps you would want to take a look at some peer libraries, whatever. It sounds like you've gotten some good input from the research that you're doing, and maybe then I might suggest, Paul, that when Lizzie's ready with another draft, we take a look at it, and I think at that point we'll have a feel for whether it's ready to approve, knowing that a policy can always be updated.
It is, as you said, it's a living, breathing thing. Trustee Cole, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow back on Mary Beth's question, because I was thinking the same thing about the school libraries. I thought maybe someone had approached you at the library, and that's where this whole collection development policy came into be. I thought for sure that you had been inundated, because if you listen to some of the school committee meetings, the public session, I mean, they're definitely talking about books that are being read to their children in school, books that are being brought home. So I thought maybe that was part of it, but I'm glad to hear it. That's not why you brought it up.
No, it's, I'll speak to you first. I mean, we need to, on a regular basis, look at our policies.
No, I think it's great. I think it's great. Good job, Lizzie.
The world of 1997 is very different, even though it's only 20 something years than the world of today. Yes, Trustee Macy
Stay
Phelps.
for us to get to the 20th century.
What made me bring it up to Lizzie with regard to the planning process was that last summer there was a public protest in Norwood Center about a program at the Norwood Public Library. So that kind of clued me into, this,
Yeah.
happening to the next town, it could happen in Westwood. So I thought, if we're doing a plan, it makes sense to make sure that we're thinking about this, policies in general, but this in particular.
Yeah, and that something like the meeting room policy, which was updated when we moved into the new building, but that is something that would be shaped on, who uses the room, what
Right.
does the library represent, what's, all of that, so, yeah.
I mean, it's just a good thing to, as part of a strategic planning process, look at the important issues like collection policies, use of public space. Also, obviously, we continue to look at our policy on the use of the younger people in the library, make sure that it's being optimal for them and respecting our patrons and that sort of stuff. So there's just some things that we will be circling back on, and the strategic plan gave us an opportunity to do that. And I've said to Lizzie, if there's other policies that we haven't looked at in a while, let's do it this year as we're thinking about our mission and the future of the library.
Right.
So I guess my sense is people like this first draft. I think that was an excellent idea. Trustee Macy Phelps, I think we'll share it with the department heads, get some feedback from them, and then put it on the agenda for the next meeting, additional feedback and anything we get from looking at other libraries or anything that comes up as part of the strategic planning process. But it's just, and again, Lizzie, if there are other policies that that you think we should take a look at, let's do it.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, anything else on that, on the collection policy? No, thank you. Friends of the Westwood Public Library update, Trustee Ryan and Trustee Van.
The only thing really to report is what Lizzie had already mentioned about the branch and having a bit of an art installation. And they took an assessment of their board and kind of had an online vote about it and discussion. And they're right behind it and would like to do it.
Right.
I think the only undetermined thing is whether they would have signage indicating that they had been the donators of it, whether it would be a separate sign or something painted on, whatever, which thinking that I heard Mary Beth talk about the business office part of it, that you would have something like that too for the 21st century. So in terms of you're being the sponsors of it.
Yeah, it should certainly be acknowledged, I would think.
Yep.
I agree. Yeah, and I think if it's done to begin with and put in for both things, that's great for the opening too, when people are coming in, and if we can get those things done, I think that's great.
Well, as always, we appreciate, they are friends in every sense of the word. That's the perfect name for them.
Yeah.
And once again, this, them seeing this and quickly deciding to take it for their own is a testament to them, as was the business, the foundation, the second that Lizzie mentioned, the business center, just, jumping onto that as well.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
please express our gratitude, and certainly I don't have any issue. I don't think any of us has any issue with finding a way to make sure that that's acknowledged.
Yeah, and we were, Maria and I are part of the, the group text as is Lizzie. So after they had made their decision, I responded and said how grateful we were for their support.
Thank you. Trustee Ryan, did you want to add anything?
About some kind of a recognition. They were hopeful that perhaps that might raise awareness of the Friends. So, we thought it was a good idea, as Maureen just said, and, Mary. So that's all.
Well, we'll certainly work with them to find the best way to do that.
Yeah.
Anything else from the Friends? other
Not right
than
now, no.
continuing support. The 21st Century Fund update. Trustee Macy Phelps.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, the fund is actually going to meet later in January, but I can update a little bit on fundraising, two aspects of that. First, in terms of the resident fundraising, so far, Mary Beth, I'll ask you to, chime in to give any corrections, details, or anything like that. So far, we're at around 15,000 raised, compared with 11,000 for the prior year. So, very good. We did have a couple of very generous donations that came in recently. So I think overall, we're still hoping to get some more smaller donations in there. But on the resident appeals so far, it's been very positive. Mary Beth, as a treasurer, if there's anything you wanted to add on that.
Yeah,
the
no,
rest-
just interestingly, we actually had the same number of people who donated, but we did have some larger donations this year, so.
I know you're going to be getting some more because I've talked to some people. They want to do their Christmas giving and then.
Yeah, no, I would hope to.
Yeah. No, I know a couple people who mentioned it to me that
Well, great, yeah, so,
they had already mapped out their stuff through the Christmas and then but they want to contribute. And I believe, Lizzie, that we may have gotten a contribution was given to Community Chest that was supposed to be to
Yeah.
the 21st Century Foundation.
Yeah. It was. I think-
Did you, as Mary Beth, are you aware of that?
no.
Okay.
I think it was made out to Westwood Public Library. So Terry has it. So we're trying to figure out where that would go.
It came in an envelope to the Community Chest,
Yeah.
but it
Oh.
was made out to Westwood Public Library.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
Gotcha.
the Community Chest reached out to me and said, we think this might be your contribution. So
nice.
I suggested they work with Lizzie to sort that out.
Yeah. It's very generous.
Yeah. No, that's good. But we're certainly very grateful to all the residents that have contributed. Certainly very helpful. And I think the publicity that's gone in about the branch and the fact that the foundation helped fund the business center. I think that certainly has helped, as Maria pointed out that and Maureen, that they, one reason we want those things recognized is it certainly helps with fundraising and just the general awareness of these supporting organizations. So very much appreciated to the residents that have contributed, and will certainly always take more donations. Mary Beth and I are also looking at some options for some fundraising in the business community as well. Again, probably something that's potentially looking for something that might be a naming opportunity. So Mary Beth has researched some policies. I don't think Lizzie, and again, this fits into the policy review.
It does.
We don't really have a policy regarding naming. So, I think when we built the main library, there were definitely, that was built into the planning process there. So we have a record of what was done, but we don't have a policy that says what kinds of things can be named by whom and so on. So Mary Beth and I are going to do a little bit more research, talk with Lizzie a little bit about that, and may come to the trustees with a proposed policy. And obviously, make sure whatever we do is aligned with what's allowed within the town, because that would enable us to potentially get some larger donations from some businesses comparable to some of the things that were done in the main library.
Okay, well, I appreciate your willingness to work
Yeah.
on that and bring something to the trustees. Anything further on the foundation, Trustee Macy Phelps?
That's it for me, unless the chair or Mary Beth, the other members have anything to add. Other than that, we'll report in February. We'll report on the January meeting of the fund.
Other than people who got the mailing talk to me about the foundation and the business center, that kind of got to them, that they understood that's sort of what this foundation is out there to do, things like that. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of acceptances and expenditures as detailed on the report submitted by Lizzie. Does anybody have any questions, comments on that report? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the report and authorize me to sign it. Made by Trustee Persons, seconded by Trustee Van Au. Call the roll. Trustee Ryan,
Aye.
Trustee Cole,
Aye.
trustee Persons,
Aye.
trustee Van Al,
Aye.
trustee Macy Phelps,
Aye.
and the chair also votes aye. Unanimously approved, and I will come by for the yellow folder.
Yellow folder.
Thank you. The next item is new business. Does anybody have any new business? No, then before we close the meeting, we invite any members of the public that wish to comment on anything we discussed
No.
tonight or anything on the
Oh, I'm
library.
sorry. I have
Yes,
some new business.
Yes,
I thought
trustee.
maybe you'd bring it up. I don't know if you received my email,
No,
but
I-
I will not, okay. I will
No, I
not
didn't.
be, I will not be running in April for my trustee's seat.
Oh,
I'm sorry. 2 terms was great. I just don't see a third one in my future.
okay.
Oh,
well,
Jess.
I did send you an email. I sent one to Lizzie too.
Oh, okay, I
um,
hadn't seen it
I've
yet, but
loved being on the board. I'm sure you'll go through your emails tonight. But I really loved being on the board. I should probably read you my note that I said, I feel like we've accomplished a lot. I'm so excited that the branch is opening. It's hard to believe that we had the branch, but we knew this whole thing was happening. I can't believe it's coming to an end. I'm very proud of all the successes that we've had in the past 5+ years.
appreciate-
So,
we
and I know
appreciate,
you guys
sir.
will continue.
we
We'll
we
miss you.
appreciate your service and.
But I
and-
wanted to tell you guys, because people can start pulling papers, I think tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you all. No, thank you.
Wonderful having you. We will certainly.
No.
Well, I will still be here till the end of April, I think, right?
All right.
Yes.
We
the
won't
end of
push
my
out the
term.
door yet.
Any further new business? No, then I invite any members of the public who are participating in the meeting, who wish to make any comments or ask any questions. Is there, do we see any?
Yeah, we
There
have.
are some
numbers
people
of-
watching.
But I don't know if they can raise their hands.
They
If
should be
that-
able to, or else type something in comments.
Okay, because then
I don't see anything in the Q&A. Oh,
Oh,
someone
yeah.
has their hand raised.
Okay, let's see. Hi, Darlene. Darlene, I think you can unmute now.
I think just for Mr. Chair, do you want to ask people to state their name and address?
Certainly, yes.
Yeah.
She's muted.
And
Oh,
there's
wait.
something,
Chantal, did you
Oh,
want to
when
say?
will the strategic plan be available? I just typed it in. Hi, Darlene. The strategic plan is actually, we're in the process right now. Oh, there's 2 questions. Oh, Darlene Cancel, 43 Westland Ave. So Darlene, the strategic plan will be available hopefully by June. This is a 8-month project. We're doing it in 4 phases. So right now we're going into the research phase, which is where we're going to ask for community input and different town departments input. So the community will definitely be hearing from us. We want to hear from everybody on where the library should be in the next 3 to 5 years. So we're hoping that by the end of June, we'll have it ready for the trustees to approve and on our website and up for everyone to see. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks. Okay, good.
Any further? No, well, we always welcome any participation and Ms. Cancella will be happy to keep you updated on the progress of the strategic plan. It's a major undertaking and we'll be discussing it at every meeting between now and it's being finalized.
If I might just note for the board that Darlene also is the founded and is the reporter for Westwood Minute, Westwood in a Minute. So it's an online news service that
We appreciate
work. Yeah.
your
So
work to keep the people.
good to have a good source of news in town.
Yeah.
It's the better informed citizens are, the better everybody is, and the
Yep.
better the process is. Any further participation from the public? No? Seeing none, the chair will accept a motion to adjourn with the next meeting of the library trustees being Monday, the 14th of February at 2022 at 7 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Made by trustee Person, seconded by trustee Macy Phelps. Call the roll. Trustee Ryan. Trustee Cole.
Aye.
Trustee Persons.
Aye.
Trustee Macy Phelps.
Aye.
Trustee Van Al.
Aye.
And the chair also votes aye. We're adjourned. Thank you all for your attendance, and I hope everybody stays safe and their family stays safe and healthy in the next month. Take care.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Aye.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Right.